Okay, it's 6 o'clock p.m., March 17th, 2014, and it's time to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD. Mr. Overfeld, we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we do.
Let the record show that a quorum of the board members are present, that this meeting's been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, if you'd stand for opening ceremonies. First, a moment of silence. Now the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Excuse me? Okay, that brings us to agenda item 4. Thank you for adjusting the mic. That's noticeable. Recognitions. A, Fine Arts, TMEA, and UIL results. Mr. Nunez.
Dr. Rios, members of the board. I would like to take this time to inform you that the Del Rio Middle School Band placed 46 students in the TMEA All-Region Band. The students competed in Eagle Pass on February the 1st against other students from the Eagle Pass Junior High and also the Memorial Junior High. At this time, I would like to call the Del Rio Middle School Band directors, Mr. Brihava and Mr. Morales, to acknowledge their students.
Thank you, Mr. Nunez. We have 46 band students from both the concert and the symphonic bands at Del Rio Middle School. And on February 1st, we went to Eagle Pass to C.C. Wynn High School. And approximately 200 students participated in this. And everybody was judged, and all these students had to play 2 etudes by themselves in front of their section. And we're very proud to say that these students made approximately half of the band, the region band at the TMEA
Region 11 auditions. So, whoa. So we're very proud of them. We have some excellent students at Del Rio Middle School, and I'm very pleased to say that these students are probably the most well-behaved students I've ever had. So I keep telling them that, and I want to say that in public in front of you guys so that they see that I'm not joking around. So they're very well-behaved, and we love working with them, and so we're just very proud of these students. So we made approximately half of the band at TMEA, we went back about 3 weeks later and we had our TMEA concert and clinic, and it went very well. And as you can see, the first students that went up there, they were dressed in the black outfits, and we have the young lady, Adriana, in the black gown, and that's what we wore for the concert. And we would like to thank the board for purchasing these for us, because it makes Del Rio look a whole lot better. The other schools do not have anything like this, and they just go in like a football uniform kind of thing. And we will wear these for our UIL concert contest coming up in April. and our band just looks really classy up there, and we're very happy to have that. And so as you can see, that's what we wear, and they look very nice in that. And all of these students wore that outfit to the concert. So here they are, 46. Here, Mr. Morales would like to say something also.
I didn't expect to say anything. I'm originally from Eagle Pass, so I know a lot of the directors from Eagle Pass, and they told me that they were very impressed with a lot of these students in the audition process, and they were congratulating us. But and Mr. B has said it before, it's not us. They make us look good as teachers because they're fantastic students, and I'm really grateful to be working at Durham Middle School.
Mr. Rihava, Mr. Morales, thank you for your time and dedication to our students, and we look forward to your continuing success in April. Thank you.
Congratulations, students.
Our next organization also competed. Was the Del Rio High School Ram Band. This band participated in the UIL Solo and Ensemble competition in February 19th. The students acquired 16 solo medals, 189 small group ensemble medals, and 98 large group ensemble medals, to a total of 283 first division medals. I would like to, Mr. Rios informed me he was having a workshop with a director right now from San Antonio in his band hall, so they were not able to be here. But Mr. White, I think Mr. White and Mr. Grange are here to represent them.
My name is Timothy Grange. I'm the assistant band director at the high school, and good to meet you. This is my first year in the district. Most of our kids are across the street with Mr. Rios in a clinic with Mr. Ray Mesa, who Mr. Nunez just mentioned. But what I would like to say is that I think out of all the years I've been teaching, and this is my 19th year, that this is probably the best. And I'm not just telling you what you want to hear. I think this is the best group of kids, and I taught at the 6th grade campus last semester. I'm at the high school this semester, and every single one of these kids, the band program is enormous. It is bigger than most 5A band programs in the big cities, the Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, Austin, etc. And it's because the band is great here, and it's a great environment for the kids, and there's a long-standing tradition of working hard and pride, and I could see it. I saw it the second I stepped on campus the first day I was here, and I've never seen kids with a fire in their belly and their hearts and a desire to be good as these kids at the 6th grade campus and the high school. And there's something about Del Rio that really attracts me and wants me to stay here. And it's been an honor, and it's great when your job is something that's your hobby and you love to do it. So I think that's about it for me. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Okay, I think I'm gonna have to hold this. I'm a little bit taller. My name's Daniel White. I'm one of the other assistants at the high school. This is my 9th year. I've been here 9 years now. So a lot of the kids that are in high school were with me when I started at the 6th grade campus. So I've actually watched them grow through their 7-year process. So it's definitely amazing to watch them when they start out about this tall, and now some of them are even taller than me. Speaking of which, okay. We are here to award their solo and ensemble. We did have several groups perform. We had them as small as a trio. We had quartets, and then we had them on bigger until they hit the big concert bands. We also had our mariachi and jazz bands perform. So in all, we had about 284 medals. So that's a real good achievement. First divisions in UIL. So yeah, they need a hand of applause, please. They really worked hard for this. So we thank you for your support and contributions from the board, and we hope we can keep our line of communication open and have these kids getting ready for all their contests with all the support of the community. Thank you.
On behalf of the Fine Arts Department, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Gravini, Dr. Rios, and members of the board for allowing us to take this time to recognize our students. Thank you.
Well, that was great. We always enjoy seeing student accomplishments. It's always a good way to start things off. And that robotics team is making headlines again too, aren't they?
Going back to the World Championship.
Okay, agenda item 5, public hearings. No items for this meeting, so that brings us to 6, board members' report. Winter governance and legal seminar update. It's kind of a reminder to the board and to anyone else interested. The Winter Governance and Legal Seminar is a conference that many of the board members go to every year, and as everyone knows, training is extremely important, and although we do that individually, it is important and I think altogether fitting to share some of what's been learned, highlights, perspective, and with that in mind, Mrs. Martinez Lozano is going to give a presentation for us, one that I'm looking forward to. The first one, assessing the effectiveness of the Board of Trustees. I guess this was one of the breakout sessions you attended
Yes,
in
it
Corpus?
was, and I thought it was a very good one, one that definitely is relevant to what we do here. And I just wanted to share the information that I learned. And I definitely thank you, Mr. Garabedian, for allowing me an opportunity to share this information. The Texas Education Code requires that the Board of Trustees and the superintendent work together to evaluate the board and superintendent leadership, governance, and teamwork. I believe that our team of 8, which for those out in the audience or out in TV land, the team of 8 consists of the 7 board members and our superintendent. I believe we actually work very well together. However, this statute requires a self-evaluation, so it's nothing personally against us as a team of 8. It's just something that we're required by law to do. Oh, you're already there. Specifically, the framework provided by TEC requires us to evaluate ourselves annually. And at the workshop, I believe Amy and I attended that one. It came as a surprise to us that there were many in the actual breakout session that had not previously evaluated themselves as well. So it's not something that not only our board here has not done, many across the state have not evaluated themselves. And it is a focus, we should be focusing on our own performance in fulfilling the board's duties and responsibilities, as well as the ability, again, to work as a team of 8. You can stay there. Okay, the basic principles of the self-evaluation include the fact that it should be a formative evaluation, one in which helps us be more effective. Secondly is the fact that we should assess our performance against a standard or clear set of expectations. Those are not set for us by the statute. That is something that we will have to develop ourselves. And of course, just like with any evaluation, once you evaluate yourself, then you have to look at what ways we can improve. The presenters shared some fundamental questions to help begin the process. Some of the questions were, what did we spend our time reviewing in the last year? And the recommendation was to just simply go back and review agendas for the past year and to kind of estimate how much time was spent on each of those issues. And then after we did that, we should focus on what impact, whether it was positive or negative, the impact of the issues that they'd had on the district, those agenda issues that were discussed. And then another fundamental question that we were advised to consider was, what was the most controversial or most difficult issue discussed? And then once we identify those, we would evaluate ourselves as to how well we did in discussing those issues and what areas we could actually make improvements. And then lastly, of course, did it even need to be discussed? No, you're beating me. Furthermore, the following ideas were given as a way to set clear expectations. While I think some of them actually it's common sense, I do believe they are simple, but they could also help to facilitate the process. Course, again, is to review the agendas. We would be asked to define characteristics, namely about 5 to 8 ideal characteristics, and then also to identify anywhere from 3 to 5 dysfunctional characteristics of the team of 8. Another idea was to actually go back and look at our videotape board meetings for body language, rolling our eyes, playing with our hair, and all that stuff. I mean, basic things, but they're things that would help us actually grow and improve. And we could also watch other board meetings, not necessarily just ours. We could even watch the city council there, always on the TV. Next steps would be, obviously, to develop a board policy. We currently don't have one in our manual. And then we would look at determining how we would want to do that, since it is a statutory requirement. And that's all I have.
Very good. Questions? For those of you maybe who didn't attend the breakout session, I didn't, obviously, I didn't go to the seminar, so it was...
It was really a good one.
Comments?
Good job.
Can I get a copy of the PowerPoint? Not now. Well, okay.
Well, there you go.
I'll take it.
With my notes and all.
Thank you. I think this is definitely something we can follow up on. I mean, how do we assess ourselves as a governing body, even in those kind of simplistic procedural things, like what do we do at board meetings, right? Are we lean? Are we not speaking clearly to one another? Is someone not being recognized soon enough to talk? Those types of things. All of that creates a more flowing process, a more effective process.
You don't want to be all self-conscious.
Someone actually said they had seen a video about our meeting and said that, so yes. We should behave.
Chair B.
Yes, sir.
I think there's a format put up by TESP to know how to evaluate ourselves.
And of course, they do offer
To
workshops.
do a workshop specifically for
Right.
that, because the team of 8 training is defined differently by different trainers, right? Goal setting, vision setting. This is more of an internal function of ourselves, right, as a group. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That'd probably be a good step to see who can actually facilitate that type.
We can get a form.
Yeah, and start from there. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 6.2. We're fortunate to have yet another trustee whose time at the Winter Governance and Legal Seminar brought back some useful information. I really like this format. I mean, we go to these seminars, we go to these conferences, and it kind of stays with us. I think this is a good format to share. So Ms. Haynes apparently went to a session about community engagement to community advocacy, because I know that's really something that she speaks out for. So with that said, Ms. Haynes, what are you going to tell us about from community engagement to community advocacy?
Tessie and I are actually going to work on this together a little bit. So, HB5 and community engagement advocacy. I will be addressing House Bill 5 and community engagement and advocacy. The weekend of February 27th and March 1, we attended the 17th annual Winter Governance and Legal Seminar. House Bill 5 was enacted at the 83rd Texas Legislative Session. It will make significant changes to public school curriculum, assessment, and accountability. Effective beginning 2014-15 school year, with the exceptions mostly for community engagement requirements. A little background as to how HB 5 came about. The current educational system was not effective as it was created as a one-size-fits-all. This type of system only led to increased dropout rates due to lack of relevance for many students. Legislators felt a need to reshape our current education system to focus on students' needs and their interest. Additionally, there was a limited focus on CTE and a failure to meet workplace demands. We are all familiar with these words. Flexibility is the room to move and choose, giving us the ability to design meaningful curriculum and educational pathways for all students at the local level. Rigor, the thoroughness with courses designed around students' interest. And relevance, to provide purpose between student and coursework and increasing partnerships with community and colleges, which we do really well around here. Tessie?
We will all become more and more familiar with these key points: curriculum, assessment, accountability, increased local control and flexibility, increased community business and college partnership engagements. We, as leaders of our district, will need to remain focused on all of these key points to ensure compliance with House Bill 5. Let's go on ahead and start with curriculum and the things that we'll need to be doing now. Obviously, we'll need to learn the new graduation requirements, and for that, we'll rely heavily on our superintendent and his curriculum team. Secondly, we'll need to assess our curriculum for endorsement opportunities, much of which I'm sure have already been done. And while we do offer many endorsements currently, we definitely look to the superintendent and his team to identify any gaps and try to fill those gaps. Thirdly, we need to increase our partnerships with local businesses, colleges, and community leaders. And of course, continue to work as a team of 8 and involve the community, whereby we can strive to exceed, not just meet the requirements. And under the assessment, there were a lot of issues brought up when they addressed assessment, but some of the key takeaways was definitely that, as many of us hear repeatedly, that teachers spend much of their time preparing for tests. And of course, we hear from our students that they're almost tested to death. It's nice to have learned that House Bill 5 actually limits 2 benchmark assessments per year. That doesn't mean they're not going to be tested in other ways, but at least for the benchmarks. And House Bill 5, in addition, defines different ways that will satisfy the end of course requirements, such as AP courses, SAT, and SAT, just to name a few. What do we need to do now? And again, we're going to hear this repeatedly: communication and parental engagement. We need to recognize and re-emphasize that tests alone are not the measurement. In order to help determine our success, we must turn to the community to develop metrics for 9 key factors that are not test-driven. And we must continually gauge our effectiveness utilizing multiple sources. And accountability, that's the third element. This is something that I know we here are very familiar with. But again, it remains important to restate here, it's definitely something that was discussed at that breakout session, that the measurement of student achievement will now look at the percentage of students completing distinguished level, as well as the percentage of students completing an endorsement. We will receive an A through F district rating. That's pending the adoption of the details by the commissioner, as well as the commissioner will assign campus ratings, those that we are familiar with. And that's supposed to come back again effective school year 2016-17. And to continue with the accountability, we have first, which is the financial accountability rating system, which has been expanded, and for that, of course, we'll rely heavily on Ms. Valdez. And one of the key areas that both Ms. Haynes and I definitely would like to keep focused on tonight, and which ties in very well with one of our goals, is that of community engagement. That is included as one of the 3 accountability ratings for us now. And that one is a new one, the community and student engagement piece. And then the second piece of that is we'll look to a local community to establish the criteria on evaluating us on those 9 factors. And those 9 factors are fine arts, wellness and PE, community and parental involvement, 21st century workforce development program, second language acquisition program, digital learning environment, dropout prevention strategies, educational programs for the gifted and talented, and to record compliance and reporting requirements. Again, the C of this new rating system stands for community, and our community obviously includes students. So community and student engagement is again an area that both Amy and I are very interested in. And for myself, I would like to see student engagement increased in the way of establishing a student board of trustees, so that our students, which are our heart and soul of our educational system, can be brought to the table so that they can share their ideas of those needs that they feel they have, as well as their interests. And with that, I'll turn it over, not yet. As a summary, again, the ABCs are A for the academics, which is going to be based on how well we do in our STAR. B, the budget, which is the first accountability rating system, and C, again, community and student engagement. And for the community and student engagement focus, we want to focus on the process, not necessarily the grade, and we definitely want to focus on student success, not necessarily comparing ourselves to other districts. And again, we will accomplish this only by working as a team of 8 and staying focused. And with that, now I turn it to Amy, who's going to focus a little bit on community engagement and advocacy.
Let me review the basics of advocacy of community engagement. The who, what, when, and how. We all know that the who is all of us. It takes the team of 8, focus on being proactive about our students' education, and community support is essential. What? What are we talking about? The obvious, quality education, but most importantly for all students, as well as ensuring our teachers and staff have the necessary resources. This may include training, materials for the classrooms, looking at ways to decrease stress and better utilize their time. When, always, period. And how? By demonstrating goodwill, by devising a communication strategy. Therefore, we need to decide what our message is going to be, how we want to frame it, and the tools we will need to succeed. In addition, we must collect feedback from the community to include our teachers, parents, and students. Why? Perception is reality. It is truth unless you change it. Why advocate? Because, again, perception is reality. It is truth unless you change it. There's many takeaways. Local control and flexibility. It's ours to protect. We must focus on alignment of student interest in learning. The grade for campus and district community and student engagement is district defined, not state defined. Academics, budget, community is a form of checks and balances, the ABC system. The greatest risk is doing nothing. Therefore, what should we do? Take action. Advocate for our district. Communicate, 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 communicate. Engage with administration, teachers, parents, students, community. Make education a priority. Thank you, Mr. Garvey.
Thank you. I have questions, because I always have questions, right? Can we go back a couple slides? Don't be quick to close it. No, sorry. Go back a couple slides to the thing about the, no, okay.
Right there?
No. Go forward again. Oh, go back. No, keep
Want to
going.
see it on paper?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Maybe y'all can answer this for me. One of the things I caught, right, one of the things that I would like to know is about qualitative methods of measuring. There was,
Number 8.
which page was it?
8, maybe?
Maybe 8. Assessment, what do we do now? Tests alone are
On the
not
assessment?
measurement.
Utilizing multiple sources.
Yeah. So where do surveys come in?
Well, that might be one of the resources that we rely on,
Okay.
providing feedback.
Now, last year we brought back the employee climate survey. There had been one in 2008, and there hadn't been one until last year, and then we brought it back again.
Right.
Is this, your presentation, does it also involve like greater community feedback as well, not just
Yes.
within the district?
Yes.
House Bill 5 actually gives a lot more flexibility to the local area in trying to develop the criteria that we're going to use to evaluate ourselves as we will succeed as it relates to those 9 factors. So definitely, they're looking at making sure that we are truly engaging the community, developing committees, getting their input. TASA actually has a great tool, maybe you're familiar with it, sir, but it even gives you, like, this is kind of like an evaluation tool as to how to evaluate each of those 9 factors, and it looks at criteria that could be considered in evaluating a district campus. That's not defined for us. Locally, that will be defined. So they have great tools out there.
And one other thing that was on your slide, Ms. Haynes, was, or maybe it was with Ms. Lozano, about increased business and community partnerships. Was there any discussion about how you go from established partnerships to a deeper partnership, or more of a relationship with the business or the community agency? Because to me, a partnership is like a legal contract, right? And we have lots of those. How do you take it to the next step? Was there any information on that?
They didn't, go ahead, Amy.
It wasn't really too much deep detail, but it was just more emphasizing that we needed to be on top of that as well. We could set up, figure out how we would want to go about just keeping the lines of communication open, and Dr. Rios, of course, he would know how to address that as well.
Yes, sir.
She might want to go first. Ms. Martinez has it.
Oh, me? No, just one of the things that Amy had pointed out in one of the slides was that we here at the local level will define those. No one from the state is going to be defining it for us.
Right, that's what I wanted to address.
Right.
Looking at House Bill 5, there's 2 things that come to mind that I want to share with the board. First is that, we've obviously been aware of House Bill 5, and we've started to establish the committee that will help evaluate our progress in engaging the community. Dr. Yapso traveled to the Service Center in San Angelo when they had a workshop a couple of months ago. One of the options was to use the district's site-based committee to to set up the process. The
What
local, site-based, because the district site-based committee has community members in it. Some, kind of what I hear from the board is maybe the desire, at least from the presentation, to expand it to other community members. So maybe the site-based committee comes up with a first draft and then presents it to the bigger, a bigger community group for engagement. So that's something that we can definitely look towards. When they talk about community engagement, though, if you notice in an earlier slide, they also mentioned CTE. And that's one of the big programs where our CTE, pathways are really encouraging us to set, as in the student's senior year, to have partnerships where the students do internships with community members. And that's why they make a big issue of CTE. So our aircraft maintenance is a perfect one because that's already set up. But for our electrical trades, for our kids in business, for all these other ones, what is it that the students can do their senior year? The goal is to get them through their senior year to where they're done with most of their classes, and maybe half day, whether it's the first half in the morning or the first half in the afternoon, they participate in an internship or a paid practicum, I guess. Either practicum or a paid internship. But that's, in studying House Bill 5, that's kind of what they're pushing us to do to get kids more workforce ready. And both of those areas we've started, but probably what we have to go back and look at is see what kind of bigger community engagement we have in actually evaluating the tool that we eventually come up with, and then doing the final evaluation of what because we're going to grade ourselves. So we have to grade ourselves on this area, and whether we give ourselves an acceptable or a needs improvement area, that's up to the committee that we establish here.
Right, and a lot of the work you've already laid out, you've already started working on. My desire to actually present this and share this with the board and everybody is that we actually communicate that and let people out in the community know this is what we're working on, this is why we're working on it. We want you to be engaged with us. We want your feedback. Yes, we will evaluate ourselves. Our community will evaluate us too. So definitely with those 9 focus areas, I don't know that the current committee that's in place would actually be appropriate to address all those 9 factors, but definitely would ask you to look into getting people who kind of are more either involved in those areas or experts in that area. Just thoughts
I
throwing
think
out
there's a
there.
lot of wisdom in that. We'll definitely look at that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
I want to interject. I think we're seeing the end results of, I saw, one size doesn't fit all. Several years ago when the FRN conference, which is a Federal Relations Network conference, we speak to our representatives and our legislators, and that was the whole message that we sent, going from a delegation of representatives, board members, to Washington, D.C., and everyone speaking to their representatives and senators. The whole idea was they were sending us money, but they were telling us how to use it. For example, the SES providers, and we didn't have a say-so how that money was going to be utilized. So that's what we want, total control. If you're going to allow, some resources, we want to tell you how it best fits our district, because we were being told how you're going to use that money. And so we're now beginning to see, this whole revamping of, what is it? Don't leave. No Child Left Behind. And then the reauthorization of the elementary and secondary what is the ESEA. They wanted to totally rewrite those programs so that the money would come locally, and then we would make our decisions as to how best to utilize that money. And so we're gradually seeing the changes being made, and I'm glad that that's coming because of all the efforts that were being made. And now we're seeing these at the conferences here in Texas, that one size doesn't fit all. And to make education a priority, that really comes from the fact that even our Texas representatives and our You know, they're the ones that voted for these cuts, and we're saying, you know, make education a priority. That should not be a cut. And so we're still, you know, we gained some of that money back, but it wasn't in the total amount that we lost. So, you know, I'm glad to see that phrase again, one size doesn't fit all. I think about our UIO programs. There's so many different school districts in San Antonio that don't travel but 50 miles, 30 miles, compared to us that we travel 150 miles to any, you know, tournament that we have. And so they don't look at those expenses, like how much money we spend to stay overnight and for the buses, you know, to take our students, but we still get the same allocation that the districts in San Antonio get, you know, compared to the ones that are on the border away from everything else, that are isolated in areas that are difficult to have competition unless you stay overnight. And so, you know, I'm glad to see the end results coming about now because of all the efforts.
I'm especially intrigued with the whole community engagement, parental engagement thing, because quite frankly, at the end of the day, the community is the schools, right? The community supports the schools through taxes, through advocacy. So that's why that's something I'd be interested in following up on, learning more about new and innovative ways to create that involvement. Anything else from either Ms. Haynes or Ms. Lozano?
No, sir, thanks.
Okay, that
for the
takes us
opportunity.
through
Dr. Garza?
3. Thank you, Dr. Garza. I'll be brief, because mine kind of ties in with what they said. Mine's more of a question-answer pondering situation. B, parental involvement conferences in neighboring school districts. I noticed on our website, approximately a week or 2 ago, I'm not quite sure when it was, maybe it was longer ago than that, one of the district's personnel was highlighted on the website, I'm glad that she was, for participating in the 20-something annual Eagle Pass Independent School District Parental Conference. I also, as you know, I travel throughout the college's service area, Uvalde, Dilley, Pearsall, Castroville, and on and on and on. I also became aware that Uvalde CISD is doing their Super Saturday Parent Conference March 29th, 2014. They've been doing it for more than a decade. Eagle Pass, apparently 2 decades. We used to have a parental involvement conference that was done away with about 4 or 5 years ago. Is a district-wide parental engagement conference or parental involvement conference, is that something that the board deems valuable? I mean, I'm not quite sure. I guess my point is, why is Eagle Pass doing it? Why is Uvalde doing it? And we stopped doing it.
It was well attended, very well attended. I think it's something that, you know, fits right along with community engagement and get feedback from the community.
You know, on the subject of how it used to work, 10, 15 years ago, maybe it wasn't that long, it was a long time ago, 10 years ago at least, I remember presenting at this district's parental involvement conference. I remember the agencies that were there, the college, the drug awareness agencies, employers, etc. I remember scores of parents and kids coming in for that all-day event. And, you know, I realize there are things that take place at the schools, right? You know, parents' nights and those sorts of things. But it seemed like when that conference took place that it did kind of take it to another level. On the subject of attendance, there are, what do you call those things, plaques on the wall outside that recognize the highest attendance for certain elementary campuses in those parental conferences, highest attendance for secondary campuses as well, even parental aid of the year, those types of things. All of it was connected somehow. So in this talk about engaging parents, engaging the community, that's kind of where I am. I'm pondering why Uvalde is doing it, why Eagle Pass is doing it. We don't do it. Does anyone know? Was it considered that it was not valuable? You weren't here, so. Dr. Garza, did you have something to say?
Yes, I do remember, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, members of the board. I do remember a couple of years ago, about 4 years ago, the last one that we had, I believe it was at the Civic Center, I believe. And what came out of it was that the presentation that was made was observed by our previous superintendent, that he said that most of the people that were there were probably our own staff members and a lot of people from Eagle Pass. And at that point, he decided that it was going to be stopped because we were spending a lot of money on that.
So
I
it
believe,
wasn't a community decision or some kind of parental survey went out and said, we don't want to do this?
I don't believe so. I know that we have some previous people here that there was not anything that was said to us, or that there was a survey that was taken by anyone. It was just a decision that was made, and
Arbitrarily.
right, right.
Okay. Mr. Mesa?
I also remember that money was a factor.
Right, right.
They would end up getting, I remember, a presenter, and then, I think we started with a presenter that it was more of a humorous type of thing instead of a instructional or educational. And so they spent a lot of money with bringing that presenter with parental money, and so I think that started the whole thing, and then the money became an issue. But I know that we used to send a delegation to, I've attended the ones in Eagle Pass, and then they would bring from Uvalde, Eagle Pass, they would come to ours, and then, we ended up going to, I remember going to the Eagle Pass, it was very well.
See, and that's exactly the type of engagement I would think that as a district we would look for in terms of the community and parents. As far as cost, I read something in the School Superintendents Association or whatever the magazine is, that it was a $12,000 cost. But, for bringing hundreds of parents, hundreds of students, presenters, that type of thing, I don't know that that would be considered excessive. That's surely what Eagle Pass is spending on that type of advocacy.
There were some comments made in accordance to what Mr. Mesa is saying, and monies that were spent and the return that we were getting from it.
Return based on what? If there wasn't an assessment of how parents felt or the community felt?
Well, I don't know.
So, okay. No, I'm not. I'm just asking, Dr. Garza. I know you've been around a long time. You might.
I know. I mean, the question was, why did it get canceled? And that's the reason that. And it was said that the return in money was, the return in benefits was not good in comparison to the money we were spending.
Yeah, well, of course, the money was the community's money as far as taxes, even through federal monies, right? I mean.
Now, in a good note, I do believe that there was some presenters, like Mr. Mesa was saying, that were very good, very good. Before it got to some people that came in, it was more of a fun thing. But there was some presenters that were very, very good, gave a good message when we were having some of these presentations.
Well, thanks for your institutional memory. It's important to have someone who's been around as long as you, Dr. Garza, can remember. But on a serious note, is this something the board might want more information on as far as
Yes, sir.
what these other
Might be time
districts
to
are doing, and something we might want to revisit? It's been 4 or 5 years, still not quite sure why it stopped. Maybe a need to improve, we certainly can understand that from a year-to-year cycle, but not to do away with it in the face of we need more community engagement, more parental engagement. Okay, that brings us to agenda item 7, reports. A, Buena Vista Elementary Gym Project update. Mr. Salinas, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Salinas is out of town.
Mr. Salinas is not here, so it's Mr. Dunlap and Mr. Brown.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, members of the board, it's good to be with you all tonight. I trust everyone had a happy spring break. And sorry you're all back at work, but that's the way it is. I've got a short presentation to you now on the progress at the Buena Vista Gymnasium. As Mr. Dunlap's just handed out a short paper report, I'd like to go through my PowerPoint and basically hit on the same topics I think you'll find. In general overview, the project's going very, very well. The contractor continues to do a good job. He's on schedule. We anticipate, I'll never say he'll finish ahead of time, but he should finish on schedule, and that's what we're looking for. And if he can't finish ahead of time, that's a great thing to happen as well. Just as a brief overview, the new gymnasium is being built right here between the bluff, so to speak, and the existing school. There's a new fire lane that we put in right here. New parking lots occur in this area right here. One of the main elements, maybe doesn't seem too significant, but it actually is. One of the main elements that has been accomplished is the finishing of the play slab. It was poured last week. There's, as you can see, the upper right-hand slide, gentleman finishing the concrete. The finished slab, bottom left picture was taken today. The reason that is important is at the end of this project, there's a lot of this site work that can't be done because of the conflict with daily school operations. So we've put the contractor in a position of saying, okay, we'll give it to you on June 1st, and you got to be finished by July 15th, which is a rather compressed period of time. But he knows that, and that's how the project was scheduled. Working cooperatively, we were able to get the play slab in earlier, which is a significant part of his work. So that's that much work that won't have to be done after school is out, and that'll loosen his schedule up considerably after school is out. I'd also like to say that would not have occurred if the principal had been as cooperative as the staff and everybody worked hard to make this happen. The building itself is going fine. Here you see in the upper left-hand column, corner, the south porch that connects the new building to the existing building. The black stuff that you see is damp proofing that goes up on all outside of the walls on the sheathing. The bottom 4 feet is the CMU that matches the existing school. The bottom right-hand picture is simply a picture from a scissor lift. These are a little bit instructive. I think this is the gymnasium last month, and this is the gymnasium this month. So as you can see, they're moving along very nicely. The white that you see is dry fog paint that is sprayed on the top of the deck of the building, and work inside the building is going very well. To the upper left, there's the mezzanine now. The bottom right is the mezzanine as it looked last month. The roofing is going. As a matter of fact, the building is dried in, which gives us much less concerns relative to bad weather and that sorts of stuff. The bad weather can still be a problem in terms of site work and that sorts of things, but inside the building we should have no issues from here on out. The damp proofing, that's all that black stuff that you see is complete totally, and like I say, they're up about 4 feet with their concrete, with their CMU, what we call split rib units. That's our masonry veneer, as we say it. Again, there's the south porch in the right-hand corner, and the damp proofing around the corner, at the other corner of the building. The schedule is the same schedule as presented last month. It hasn't changed, and again, the farther we get into this, the less weather can possibly affect us. The more comfortable we'll feel. But at this point, I feel very, very comfortable. We hold weekly meetings to see where we are and try to resolve issues so they don't become sticking points in our schedule. And so far, he's done a very, very good job, and we're very satisfied with the progress. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Excuse me, I'd like to point something out. Can you go back to the slide? That's a good enough one. I just want to mention to the board that about maybe 2 weeks ago, at least definitely a week ago, I drove by there and I noticed that the masonry work was going up. And then I drove by a couple days later and I saw that the masonry work had come down. And my understanding in talking to Mr. Salinas was that even though some work had gone up already, they made the determination that it wasn't the quality work that they wanted, and they took it down and started from scratch. And I appreciate that kind of diligence in observing the project, because not only do we want it to come in on time and under budget, but we want to make sure it's good work. So somebody made the decision to take it down, and I just want to commend the process, because that'll ensure that even though it was significant work, that they started again to make sure that they turn over a good product to the school.
Well, it takes an entire team, and yeah, it takes a cooperative contractor, and he's been very good to work with.
Other questions for Mr. Dunlap or Mr. Brown? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 7B, discipline report. Dr. Garza and Ms. Garcia. Did I miss them?
No, sir. I just, like always, we shared these with the board update. They're prepared to review them, depending on the board's wishes, both the discipline and the attendance report, whatever whatever the wishes of the board are.
Questions or comments or desire for discussion regarding the discipline report? No? Okay, what about the attendance report? I have a question regarding the attendance. You can probably answer, Dr. Garcia. Been around a long time. I'm just kidding with you.
I don't know if that's good or bad there, Mr. Garabedian.
Okay, no, but here's a serious question, all right? Last month, we looked at a report from Dr. Sally from the high school, and I think there were questions about other schools as well, what they do to try to get the students back into school. Right? So, the parental aid component, was I correct, or was I was I confused that parental aid does home visits a certain amount over a period of time? I mean, did I see that correct? Like 10 home visits over several months or something? Shouldn't that be like 10 home visits in a week?
Yes, sir. Yes, it just depends on the what's going on at the campus, but yes, they do attend.
What is the job description of parental aid?
They are communicating with parents, and if it's necessary that if they can't communicate through the phone, they get a list of the students that's necessary for them to do a home visit, and then they do the home visit. They go and knock on the door and make sure that the parent is aware of why the school is trying to contact them, or any information that's pertaining to their son's or daughter's schooling.
Okay, so in those instances where we have schools that are struggling with their attendance rate, like on the report, there's really 2 or 3 of them. Looks like the freshmen, of course, Cardwell, and the high school. How much has the parental aids used as far as making home visits? How much has it increased?
Compared to last year?
Compared to last year, compared to 3 years ago, 5 years ago?
I wouldn't be able to answer that without the numbers in front of me, sir, but I have our federal programs director here that could probably answer it a little bit better than I can.
Come on up, Ms. Smith. Looks like you have perhaps the answer. You see what I'm getting at, right? What exactly are parental aides supposed to be doing? I mean, how much time should they be spending going to the homes and making home visits, or are they doing other things?
Well, that is based on the need of the campus, and they are pretty much directed by the campus principal, but their main objective is to bring in those parentals, or to bring in the parents to have that engagement. They're meant to make that contact with parents, not as truant officers, but to go out there and ask the parents as far as why isn't little Johnny coming to school? How can we help him? What can we do to make sure that he does come into school?
Okay, so in the time that the board has noticed and administration has worked on improving the attendance rates of several schools, have the amount of home visits by those parental aides increased?
And like Dr. Garza said, I couldn't tell you without looking.
Okay, well, I would like...
We do have the statistics, but I don't know what they are off the top of my head. I would be more than welcome, or I can provide that to you.
Yeah, I want to believe that yes, anytime that we have an attendance problem and we want to improve it, there has to be better communication at home. So I want to believe that yes, it has increased. But like we said, we'll get you the numbers.
That's okay. All right. The other thing is the secondary students at the high school, that's an entirely different scenario. So I haven't asked the question yet. So at what point are the parents being put under pressure to get their kids in school? I mean, what are other districts doing? What do we need to do instead of having the same discussion month after month as to why the attendance rate at X school and Y school and Z school is not as high as we would like it to be?
Well, one of the things that Dr. Sally presented specifically for the high school is the constant communication that they have with the parents, every parent, every day, by either someone, not a human being calling, but a program that we have, or getting the list and actually calling them by the end of first period to make sure that they know that their son or daughter is absent. So that's constant every single day, and that has changed from previous years. So the answer to your question, are we harassing the parents or communicating with the parents as much as we should? I would say that we could do a better job, but we're doing a better job than we did last year. That's one. That's probably the proactive things that we're doing. Besides the actual reactive, which is sending them to court, which is the last thing that we want to do. But we are also taking that step. And I know you said, are we harassing the parents as much as we should?
Well,
Are we
pressuring.
pressuring the parents as much as we should? I do believe we are, but we could do more than just that. Now, with a high school that we have 2,000 kids, at an average, I think she said we had about 130 kids absent. Where is Dr. Sally? About 130 kids absent every day. So definitely there is 130 calls every single day on those kids that are absent that particular day.
Those are robocalls or those are
No,
roll calls?
they actually have a list, and they split them up again with secretaries and parental aides, and make sure that they make a human call to the house. And where the parental aid comes in is if they can't get in touch with someone in 1 or 2 days, that's the one that goes on the list, and they actually do the home visit.
Okay. All right, other than what would be described, I guess, as punitive or pressuring, what are we doing or can we do to help parents get their kids into school?
Well, we also have meetings every month, once or twice, in discussing attendance and how important it is for them to be there. The difficulty there is the parents that should be there are not there. So the best thing that we can do with the parents that are struggling with their kids not going to school is the communication that we have with them, either by phone or doing home visits. Because even if we do presentations, Mr. Garabedian, the parents that need to be there are not going to be there. So I think if we keep going and we keep pressuring parents with those phone calls that we get every single day, and I didn't talk about the actual electronic one. The electronic one will tell you your son was absent 5th, 6th,
Yeah, I've gotten that
7th.
call. I know about that one.
Right. So every single day they call you. And, I mean, we could do better at it, but we're constantly looking for ideas of how to do it better.
Questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Mesa?
I know, the question that I know Mr. Garabedian is asking is, when the parental aide makes a home visit, they log down the mileage, and then they request reimbursement. So that's what we'd like to see, like,
Sure.
what efforts, if any, have increased from previous months to where we're at now.
Of course. We'll get you that information.
We do have a monthly report, and we keep track of that. And there is a form that goes along with that. Every time a parental aide does go out to make a home visit, there is a form on there that they annotate why they're going, what's the purpose of the visit, and whether or not they were able to make contact with the parent and what the result of that was. So we do have those monthly.
Because I've heard feedback from parents that, well, we get a bunch of robocalls, they're on my answering machine, it's harassing or annoying or whatever. We don't get much help as to, how we can, or what can the district do to help us get our kids in school. So I'm stuck here in this meeting over and over hearing about how we want to move up the attendance, but I'm not quite sure that, what are we doing different? What are we doing better?
The proactive things. That's what you're talking about. That's one of the things that we need to do. Yes, sir. And like I tell you, we can do a better job in actually giving parents some information of why it's important for them to be at school. Also include, how can you bring your son or daughter to school? I think that's what you're asking. How can I advise the parent of things that they can do to make sure that they're in school? And every situation is different, Mr. Garabedian. It just depends on what it's at home. But sometimes I think that the best course of action that we can take is, unfortunately, sometimes some parents do not have the capability to understand what they're doing in damaging their son or daughter because they're not going to school. So we, as adults, the public school system needs to become the advocates, and I think that's where we need to go. And sometimes it works with talking to the parent, but I think it works more by talking to the student, especially at the secondary level, because at that point, it's that student that needs to be with us.
Have a lot less control. Certainly.
Right. Well, Yeah, but sometimes we can actually tell the parent, and the parent will understand exactly what they need to do. I think what I'm getting at is the way we're going to do things this year or next year with the endorsements, and how we've been doing it for several years now, is what interest does the kid have to bring him to school? There's certain things that we're doing right now, and something called career cruising that actually tells the counselor, tells the student, tells the teacher what interest is there for the student. And they see their eyes open when they see what we have at the high school. So, you know what? I just thought about that. That's something different that we've done the past couple of years, where we actually bring students to the high school for them to see what's there, because they don't know what's there. Once they see it and they open their eyes to what's there, there might be a student that had been having problems at 7th and 8th grade, but in 9th grade, all of a sudden they see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's what makes them come to school. So we need to do more of those things, and also professional development on our staff for them to understand that a student that's there taking Algebra 1, how do I get that student to understand that Algebra 1 is the gateway to graduate when they'd rather be in welding or they'd rather be in automotive? So they need to see the connection, and we're doing a better job at that, but we need to do better. The interest is on the student, sometimes better than actually the interest of how to fix the home situation.
Have we asked, this gets back to parents calling me friends, right? Neighbors, that sort of thing, telling me, well, the robocalls, but it does no good, et cetera. Have we asked in a survey, in a measurable way, in a scientific way, in some sort of quantifiable way, what parents need to help them? Because I've gotten surveys, like needs assessment surveys for parental involvement, whatever, at the campuses, and that's fine. Those are good. I'm not saying that they're not. But I don't know that, that we've done anything like that.
No, I can tell you, we have not done that specifically, taken a survey and figure out what the parents are really requiring. No, we have not done that. But that's something to think about, that we can go out there, use parental aids, and figure out a way to make sure that the parents are telling us at 6th, 7th, 8th, or whatever grade level, before we lose the kid and having an attendance problem, how do we change that? Because the kid that has an attendance problem at the high school had it at first grade. Most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. And figure out a way to make sure that the parent understands, okay, if this is what I'm struggling with, so I need to know, the public school needs to know, how can I help that parent? So I get what you're saying, that maybe we do need to take some surveys or something out there that can help us better understand how to bring kids to school.
Other questions?
Just one.
Mr. Mesa?
You're very, you're right on it as far as any student that has an attendance problem at the high school. It's not the high school's problem. I mean, this is historical that these students start in elementary. But I think as a board member, we look at academics, we want to make sure that they're ready to graduate, and get all their credits. And the other thing is safety, because, I mean, I went out on senior skip out day to the lake, and you think like, okay, one day. But when these kids are out there like, a large number of days, you think of their safety. What are they getting into? And it's usually not good. And the other thing is, the one thing that we learn as board members is you want to increase the allocation that you get, you focus on your ADA, and you increase that average daily attendance, and, we'll receive more, and be able to do more with the budget that we have. So, we look at all those things, but you're correct in saying that normally the problem starts in elementary, but there's, instruments that will help us. I mean, they're defined. Excessive absences, and so that's one thing that should go from one grade level to the next. If we have single grade campuses, then it should go saying, here's a parental aid from 6th grade going to the 7th grade parental aid, telling them watch out for these kids,
right,
and so on, because we have those tools.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chavita, you raised your hand. Did you have something to say?
Yes. Dr. Garza, I think you're in the right direction as far as the kids' interest and everything. There's so many variables that make a kid want to go to school. We can continue to call and we can continue doing what we're doing. It's not gonna, talking to Mr. Casillas here, some couple of weeks ago about campuses that they visit. You know, the kid also wants to go to a place where it's a beautiful place, but then there's some places we need to start thinking in terms of making the schools a little better for them to go to. We always worried about monies and all that type of thing, which is great. I mean, you were saying about us board members. Well, what I learned is when I was at the classrooms, when I was as administrators, that what makes a kid come up here is because what bring you to the school. Let's face it, we're not going to go up in and look at a computer. We're up there to see what is the school giving us. What makes me want to go out there with it? What makes me go work? The gentleman that was here with Ben Director says, hey, I love to go to, hey, his job is not a job. His job is a hobby that he goes up there. Well, that's what we need to do for the kids. And we start by providing the environment, better schools. I mean, we can go on and spend 3 hours here talking about it, and we're not going to do it unless we start looking at the big picture.
Yes, sir.
So again, let's see if we can get to the kids. That kid that is absent, and most of them are the same ones. If we can get those 50 kids that are continuously, what's making them come to school? What can we do for you to get you to Mr. Casillas, when was it that you went on to New Mexico or Arizona, whatever it was? And the kids were out there having fun. I mean, they want to go to school.
So I understand, sir, and that's what I was saying earlier, that there's got to be different programs at the school that helps that student understand this is your road and this is your pathway. And we have done several things to do the transition from 5th grade to 6th and from 8th grade to 9th and from 9th through 10th grade. But we could do a better job in making sure that we help the parent, like Mr. Garabini is saying, what can we do to help the parent understand at 1st grade, at 2nd grade, all the way through high school, of how they can get their child to school, and even get the parent to come to our school so they can see all the programs that we have. Okay, I think that would open their eyes too.
Other questions, comments?
Just one additional comment. All that we have been talking about as it relates to attendance definitely ties in extremely well with what Amy and I were talking about, and what others have, I think, also feel passionate about, is that student engagement, community parent engagement. And have we actually gone and asked the student, what would bring you here?
Right.
Or the parent.
And the parent.
What can we do?
And
It's also educating the parent.
I don't want to end I don't want to sit down without telling you that we are meeting with these students. Counselors are constantly talking to these students. We're not ignoring it, so please don't think that we're not paying attention to the individual student and having constant conversations with that student to make sure that he understands or she understands that they need to be at school.
No, absolutely. I definitely believe and am confident that you are communicating with the student, but are you specifically asking them, what can we do to make the school environment better for you?
Right.
I don't know I mean, yes, we need you to come to school and this is why.
Right.
Absolutely, we're having that conversation with them. But are we asking them, what would make you come to school?
Right. Yes, and that would be the next step.
Thank you.
And Mr. Messa's point, of course, the ADA, all that's important. We know that the two teachers to my right will tell you that if they ain't in class, you ain't teaching them.
Correct. You're missing out. My students in the back should know that right there also, right? Right, guys? You're not there, you're not knowing what's going on. Fall behind.
Okay, well, I look forward to some updates about where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that brings us to agenda item, if there's nothing else on attendance or discipline, brings us to agenda item 8, which is the consent agenda. I do want to point out, and I need a little bit of help from the rest of the board or administration. Probably should have mentioned this to you earlier, Ms. Falcone, but on the minutes from the February 17th board meeting, on the very first page, where it says others present, and it mentions Dr. Rios, Dr. Garza, Ms. Garza. It has Mike Salinas, but I thought Mr. Salinas was absent at the last board meeting. Wasn't he absent? Mr. Dunlap, is Mr. Dunlap still here?
I think it was the one before last.
So Mr. Salinas was here at the last board meeting?
I mean, I could be wrong.
Well, okay, well, Mr. Dunlap, let me ask you then, because you were the one who presented, right? Didn't he present? Yeah, look, on page 8, on those minutes, where it says reports Buena Vista Gym Project update, Dennis Dunlap and David Brown. And Dennis Dunlap and David Brown presented, whatever. So that's why Mr. Salinas was out, correct? Okay, all right. Then, just want to make sure, because as you know, once they're approved, they're the official record, and we'd have to rescind it to fix it, and so on and so forth. So, Ms. Falcone, would you make a note to strike Mr. Salinas as others present? He was not present, so.
Mr. Chairman, also, could you clarify on this consent agenda up to what item it goes to? Because
Consent agenda goes from A, you're talking about the entire thing, right? Under consent agenda, which is agenda item 8, goes from A all the way through the donations, all the way through up to I, which is quarterly investment report, which there's nothing. It's the policy, revisions, H, purchase order over 25,000. All of that's consent, agenda item 8. Do I understand? Does any board member wish to pull any items from the consent agenda for discussion? No. Okay. And again, we're making the small change to reflect it being completely accurate. So is there a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda? Ms. Lozano has motion, Ms. Haynes has second. All in favor by a show of hands? It's unanimous, motion carries. So that brings us to the point in the evening where we need a volunteer to read the donation list.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Overfelt?
I thought Ms. Haynes was gonna step up to the plate. I guess not. Okay. You done good this evening, though, ma'am.
Yeah, appreciate it.
This evening, as far as donations go, the spot in the amount of $130 to Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary and $234 to North Heights Elementary. Dr. Lonnie Green PTO in the amount of $2,567.78 to Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary. The Delro Queen City Bells Booster Club, in the amount of $2,125 to the Delro High School Queen City Bells. And the Junior ROTC Booster Club, in the amount of $1,094.03 to the Delro High School Junior ROTC. Kevin and Vicky Judas, in the amount of $500 to Delro High School Metal Trades. Simon and Pearl Benavides, in the amount of $200 to Delro High School Metal Trades. Delro Lions Club Foundation, in the amount of $4,400.67. Delro High School Metal Trades. David Kinsey, in the amount of $1,000 to the Delro High School Metal Trades. Boys and Girls Track Booster, in the amount of $2,000. Delro High School Boys and Girls Track. Border Federal Credit Union, $300 to the Teacher of the Year nominees. Texas Community Bank, $50 Teacher of the Year nominees. Texas Athletic Productions, in the amount of $875 to Delro High School Athletic Department. The Bank and Trust, $150 for the CTE When I Grew Up poster contest. Box Tops, $1,281.70 to Buena Vista Elementary. And John Reed, non-monetary donation competition supplies valued at $150 and $54.84 given to Delro Middle School Robotics. That'd be all, sir.
Okay, thank you. As always, we thank and appreciate all those who have donated to our students and the programs of the district. Brings us to agenda item 9, citizens to be heard. Ms. Falcone, did anyone register for? Okay. Agenda item 10, there's no items. Agenda item 11, curriculum and instruction. Dr. Garza and Ms. Garcia, consideration to approve adoption of instructional materials for the 2014-15 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, members of the board. This year we have a proclamation for mathematics, science, and technology applications. Mathematics in particular is K through 8th, and science is K through high school. What we did this year, each campus has a textbook committee. They went to a text fair. I don't quite remember the date, but there was a text fair where they were shown the textbooks that are out there that the state has adopted or has a possibility to adopt. And then from there, they came together with a district text committee, and they came in to approve the books that they wanted to approve. So it was a selection by the teachers, for the teachers, and this is why we're here, to make sure that we approve the proclamation for the 2014 and 2015 year. Are there any questions?
Mr. Overfeld has a question.
Yes, sir.
As we move into a more digital age there, particularly with 1-in-1 at the high school and then hopefully 1-in-1 at the high school, are any of these hardbound available in a digital version that we will also have the ability, the students will have the ability to put the digital version on their
They are
media?
all of them. All the books that we bought are digital.
Okay.
And print.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Other questions? The recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the attached list of instructional materials for the 2014-2015 school year.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. Overfeld has motion. Is there a second? Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 12, facilities and operations. A, consideration to approve a 20-foot easement and right-of-way for AEP to replace an underground power line cable at Del Rio High School. Mr. Dunlap is presenting.
Thank you.
Mr. Salinas. Correct. Mr. Dunlap.
On August 20th, we had a power outage at Del Rio High School. One of the underground lines burned, and so we had a temporary line put overhead to get the school back online. And after several months discussing routes with AEP, we've come to a decision. That was the existing route, underground route line. And this is Exhibit A from AEP recommending the new route of the underground line. And I have a side-by-side view. Red is the old, green is the new route. And we kind of dashed it in between the practice fields so we didn't interrupt anything. So basically that's it. And we're just looking to see if to get approval for the easement.
It is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. It's something that requires board action.
I just want to point something out back to Mr. Garabedian. May I?
Go ahead.
In the discussions with AEP, there was obviously the best way to reroute the line would be to follow the same path, but that would tear up the baseball field in the middle of the school year. The other route was to go around it in a way that would not inhibit future construction. AEP and the school district came to the agreement that we would use that current path, but if there was future construction where the lines, where the buildings, whether it be a field house or any other type of building, would be built along that path, AP committed to rerouting the line for the district. Well, their work would be for free. Our part would be I believe our part would be the trenching part, which isn't at all expensive. But there was a lot of discussion and thought going into this, so I appreciate Mr. Salinas' department communicating with AEP. We just need to remember that for future construction, AEP said they would take care of it. That was the agreement that we came to.
Yeah, he has that in the contract with him. Yes, sir.
Other questions for Mr. Dunlap? Okay, the recommendation, Mr.
It's the
Dunlap.
recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the 20-foot easement and right-of-way to AEP to replace an underground power line cable at the Del Rio High School and authorize the president of the board to sign the easement and right-of-way documents as presented.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Ms. Lozano has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Dunlap. Thank you. Agenda item 12B, consideration to approve the most highly qualified architectural service provider or providers for the district's minor projects that resulted from the approved Citizens Committee district-wide construction renovation repairs project list totaling $23,138,000. Dr. Rios, Mr. Salinas is not here, so it's just you, I assume, that will
Yes, sir. We put out a request for qualifications for all the $25 million worth of construction that the board allotted, and we received input from various architectural firms across the state. Using a process that's included in the packet, we rated them, and the ones that rated the highest we're bringing back in the next agenda item C, but the ones that didn't rate as high, we included them for the minor projects. Why the minor projects? Well, because the smaller firms, the larger firms won't make the trip all the way to Del Rio for a small project because of the going and coming, and that's just been the experience of the district. So the firms that didn't get considered for the renovation of the old 8th grade campus, the early college high school, which is this campus, and the future CTE magnet school, we're inviting them to work with us on the minor projects, and that's who we've listed here. All the projects, all these projects are under $1 million, but these are the minor projects. I'll have a different recommendation for the other ones. Are there any questions, Mr. President, on agenda item B?
Questions from the board? Ms. Lozano, did you have a question?
The other thing I'll point out is that just because they're rated in the order that we presented in the attachment, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the person we're going to go with for every project, because we want to get the projects moving along fairly quickly, so we will negotiate with any one of the architects that are listed here will be able to give us a timely response and the better value to the district. Now, you would approve their qualifications.
Ms. Lozano?
Maybe I did have a question. What you're asking for right now, Dr. Rios, is for the minor projects only?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
just to clarify that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
I guess, I'd like to see if, once we get started, once we select, to see what we can do to at least save on our energy costs. And I know we've talked of, like, for example, lighting, that sensors that turn off the lights and so forth. But I know for a time, we've been talking about harvesting rainwater whenever it rains here. If at all feasible, I don't have no idea where or what, but could those conversations at least be brought up to see if anything can be done?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
I really would appreciate it.
Other questions? You see from the memo that, these are items that are, these are very definitely needs, right? Re-roofing, parking lot paving, lighting, et cetera. Now, assuming the board approves the recommendation, what's the next step on these minor projects?
The next step on the minor projects would be obviously, to work with the architect. There are some that would require renditions that I would like to bring back to the board. But for example, the roofing, we get that approved, and we move forward. And then go out on an RFP from the different contractors that would then bid on these projects.
So everyone understands, right? It's a multi-step process. Because I know I'm not the only one who wants to go very sequentially and slow when it comes to millions of dollars. Okay. Or not at all. Other questions? Okay. Ms. Lozano?
Just that minor projects does not necessarily mean we're not talking about $1 million.
That's a good point.
Just, I would think a minor project wouldn't hit that.
What is the,
amount.
if I can jump in, what is the distinction, I guess, of a minor project? I mean, at what point costs a certain amount of money? I mean, what are we talking about, the definition?
We said anything that was right in the ballpark, of $1 million, give or take a few dollars, and they're mainly the roofing projects. If we add all the roofing projects together, well, they'll clearly be over $1 million, but we wouldn't bid all of them out together. One company may be doing the roof at Calderon, and another company may be doing the roof at the San Felipe Memorial Science Wing. The Delaware High School parking lot and paving lighting area, that's $181,000. The Walter Leverman Stadium is the one individual project that would probably require a rendition where I would bring that back to the board for approval, because that does involve just a little bit of design. But if you look at the list that's listed there, they're all either significantly below the $1 million or close to it. And I'm going on page 72.
It's for the benefit of the other trustees. Ms. Lozano is looking at the list, the construction list from back in January. And, there's on page 74, and there's a bunch of proposed projects under special project facility needs assessment costs, and then above it is campus facility needs assessment costs. But this list includes some from both, right? I think that's what you're asking?
Right, it's just confusing, I guess.
Yes, that's why we just.
Or I should say this memo includes from both the top and bottom category of that list.
But for the purposes of this agenda item, we're only talking about what's listed in the memo.
Mr. Chavita or Mr.
Are we gonna select one to do all the minor ones, or are we just gonna go?
No, sir. We're gonna use the list that you approved tonight, if you approve it tonight, and based on their availability, we will work with different ones. For example, when y'all approved now I wasn't here, but my understanding is that when y'all approved the bond, you selected two architects and they traded projects. Not traded, but took turns. We would do the same thing here because there are a lot of multiple projects.
So in other words, you can work with, the 5 that are listed here, 6.
No.
Not necessarily?
No, the recommendation on the memo is 3 firms.
3, rather, yes, Graves and.
But the list, like, I think, Mr. Chavita, you're saying on the list.
No, I'm not, I just mentioned it.
Just these 3 that are on the memo, sir.
Those 3.
But not any one of them would get all of the projects. We would use the same process that they used back in the bond project.
Is that the case? I'm ready for the recommendation.
Other questions? And so if when you give the recommendation, if the recommendation is approved, and if, say, one of these proposed projects, or two out of, there's probably 10 or so on here, were not to be approved later on, that wouldn't affect what we're doing, right? You're asking for architects to work on these projects on the understanding that probably all of these projects will take place, right?
Correct.
But if one or two didn't, pending the desire of the board, it's still the same. I mean, we're just saying these architects for these potential projects.
Correct.
Other questions? Okay, the recommendation then.
It's a recommendation of the administration that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees approve the selection of John Graves and Associates, Alvives Architecture, and Abel Kosher and Davis Architects as the architectural firms per RFQ number 14-05 for the district's minor projects that resulted from the approved Citizens Committee's district-wide construction renovations and repairs projects list, recommendations totaling $5,327,000 as presented, and that they approve the superintendent to negotiate and sign a contract with the selected architectural firms at a fair and reasonable price.
We've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to accept? Mr. Chavita has motion, Mr. Mesa has second. All in favor by a show of hands? We ready to vote? All in favor by a show of hands? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. All opposed? 1 opposed. Motion carries. Brings us to agenda item 12C, consideration to approve the most highly qualified architectural service providers for the district's major projects that resulted from the approved Citizens Committee district-wide construction renovation repairs project list totaling $23,138,000. Dr. Rios again is presenting.
For this, for these major projects, which include, again, the renovation of the 8th grade campus, the construction of the CTE Magnet School, and transitioning this to an early college high school, that's what we deem the major projects. What we would like to do in this case is have y'all approve the list of architects that we have here, but not, I won't read the part where it says that you approve and delegate that the superintendent sign a contract, rather that you approve the selection and we will bring the architects at a board workshop a week from this Saturday, or at a date agreeable to most board members, and have them present the work that they've done specific to construction of CTE buildings, renovations of older buildings, transitioning buildings such as this one into classroom buildings. They would make their presentations, then we would go into executive session, come back with a discussion and a selection where we could select one for all three or one per project. But all you would be approving tonight is just the selection of those architectural firms that we've included on the list, which at this time we have 5 of them listed.
Mr. Overfeld?
Okay. On this one here, total project cost $17.6 million there, and we went from 6 on that list to 5 on this list, and that 6 actually went down to 3 there. With $17.6 million on the table here for some of these proposed items there, I'm not convinced of just 5 there. I'd like to see some more added to this list for the workshop there. I'd like to see at least the next 2 that were ranked 6 and 7 there, because with over $17 million, what we're getting ready to possibly do there, I want to make sure we're going to use somebody that's going to definitely take the money and do right with it. The proposed conversion of the old Del Rio Middle School, there, the old high school there. That's a very historic building in Del Rio, and I want to make sure it's honored there. Whatever we do with the CTE, perhaps with that, or the conversion of this building. I'm not convinced with 5. I'd like to see 6 and 7 added to this list, whoever they might be.
I concur with Mr. Overfeld. I'm not quite sure how many were on the list total. I think what Mr. Overfeld is saying, and what I agree with, is it might be nice to have a few more demonstrate what they've done and what they, what they can do, that sort of thing. Other comment, Mr. Mesa? More interested in, how many were on the list total?
11, sir. 11, yes.
And who is on the committee?
The committee that reviewed the documents that were submitted I reviewed them, Mr. Salinas reviewed them, and I believe Mr. Dunlap reviewed them. It was the 3 of us.
Say that again, please, sir.
Mr. Salinas, Mr. Dunlap, and myself.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Overfeld to add additional, to allow them if they would be interested in providing their.
We're going to be here on a Saturday, and that lends itself to having as many firms present as possible. I've been through this process before, and that's certainly doable. Breaks in between, that's not a problem. So whatever the wishes of the board are, at the end, the idea is to give the board more input into the selection and give them the information. So that's.
How long are their presentations? More or less.
It's my experience that none of them have more than 30 minutes because they're bringing renderings and they talk about, for example, some architect may talk about water conservation and how they focus on the green side of the house, and others might talk about competitions that they've won and show the pictures and natural lighting, so they'll highlight that. It usually doesn't take more than 30 minutes per firm. So whatever the wishes of the board are.
So that means that we can see all 11 of them, if they so desire to come by.
We're not gonna be here that long.
Our job was to make it easier for y'all, but by all means, it's the wishes
Oh,
of
I'm
the
just
board.
saying, I mean, it says, if you're gonna add 2, why not
Add all of them, right? If you go from
Which
5
two
to
do you
7
wanna
to
see?
11.
I'm just saying the next 2 on the list down from, as they were ranked 1 through 5.
I'm saying,
I'd
but
like to.
which 2?
I don't know the list. Who's 6 and 7, sir? I don't know who it is.
And I don't think that's important, just.
No.
But, without getting it more complicated, and maybe I'm just tired, there's a continuing reference of converting this building into an early college high school. An early college high school is not a building. It's a TEA designation. So, why do we keep using that term? Do you understand what I'm getting at? That an early college high school is a TEA designation. You know what it is, right? It is a cooperative agreement that allows students participating to earn an associate's degree from your cooperative institution at the same time that they earn a high school diploma. It is not about gutting a building and creating classrooms.
But that's normally what they do.
Well, you have a site, but if you built this, if you refinish this building, right, whatever the plan is, 6 classrooms, administrative offices, etc., if you did that and were finished tomorrow, you would not have an early college high school, period.
Oh, because you gotta apply for it.
And you apply for it based on a number of things. One, you have to show that you have the instructional capacity. So help me out here. If this building were converted, right, into the new structure, it could be possibly converted by the end of this year?
No, sir.
No?
If I may.
Okay.
When we presented to the committee, and in the discussions that we've had, the timeline was clear. We would begin the application process for the early college high school now. CNI department under the leadership of Dr. Garza will begin that process. We're clear that renovating the old eighth grade campus would be first, and we would not start on the early college high school at all until we had moved in that direction. The timeline that we've discussed is clearly a year out from this summer. Within that time frame, we would know whether the application was completed or not. And not that it would affect the board's decision, but we had discussed when we invite the architects to come back and they talk about the eighth grade, because those are going to be linked. When we move into the eighth grade, this is vacated, possibly selecting the same architect to do the eighth grade and to do the early college high school because of the transition and one working for the other. However, that's going to be a board decision come the workshop. But we would clearly have the application submitted and approved. If we don't have it approved, then at that point, we obviously wouldn't do early college high school at this point, and we'd bring it back to the board and say, okay, what are the wishes?
So this building wouldn't be renovated, the money wouldn't be spent unless you knew that there was a TEA designation forthcoming?
That would be clearly the first option that we would present to the board if it wasn't. Now, we're confident that that's a goal that we're working to get that designation. But if it's not designated, then we would bring back to the board and say, look, we applied for this early college high school designation, we didn't receive it. We're not ready to move in that direction. You know, what else can we do at that point? Other discussions that took place, should that happen, would be to take some of the older administrative buildings, for example, the annexes that are in portables, and transitioning them to this site, because we do believe that at the end of the day, this is a better building than some of the ones that we have. So those options would then be discussed. Now, we are hopeful that we will get the TA designation and be able to move in that direction. But until they approve it, we don't know, but we're not gonna start any renovations until we know for sure.
Ms. Lozano? Question?
How many of these projects, the major ones, will be done at the same time? Is it one by one?
No, ma'am. Our goal as administration is to have the CTE magnet and the eighth grade, the renovation at the eighth grade. We've discussed, my goal is to bring both of those to the board, the renderings for approval at the same time, and have those two launched at the same time.
How will we manage that?
The construction of that? This coming month, I will bring to the board, and I have discussed it with y'all, hiring a construction manager. And I remember talking about it in open session, because I remember Mr. Mesa saying that that was a good idea. Hire a construction manager that would help move that. The idea is that that individual will not only help us safeguard the district's investment in relation to those two projects, but also the other minor projects that would be ongoing.
And I like that idea, Dr. Rios, because here we are getting back to the construction going on right now. We should have had that gym built years ago. And since the money was approved, I think we should get on it and try to do it as soon as possible. And getting back to the designation, if for whatever reason we don't get approved, that doesn't mean we're going to stop. Because I think that that will benefit our students. And this is the reason we're here, not for any one of us. We want to make sure that we get this. If we don't get it the first time, we'll apply it for the next go-round.
Ms. Lozano? You have something?
I mean, I definitely agree with what Mr. Chavita just said. We shouldn't stop if we get a no. I'm hopeful that we won't get a no to begin with. But if we did, I would think that we would have to design the building in a different way if it were going to be used for different reasons.
Ma'am, if, Ms. Lozano, if we were to use the building for option B or option C, our recommendation is clear. At that point, we wouldn't redesign the building. We wouldn't invest any money on it. We would just transition these offices into other offices that are used at the annex too. We would not recommend investing any money in renovations in here. And that money would just, sit there in fund balance until, the board deemed better use for that money.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. He's tired.
That's one way of describing it. Okay, so, one other question. We have listed on here the major projects, the CTE at $9 million almost, and the conversion of old Del Rio Middle School at $7 million. So, assuming this architectural display, whatever Mr. Overfelt, right, what we're calling this, bringing all the architects or whatever goes forward, they're still, having to come back to the board, asking to move forward on one or both projects, right?
Yes.
Okay. And the idea of spending $15 million within a few months gives me pause. Not the construction or the projects, but the pace of the projects. So, getting back to the point at hand, the architects want more of them, right, in the display. Okay. Sounds reasonable. Other questions?
Yes, I'm just questioning what you just got through saying. Why does it give you, we're not gonna spend it just because we wanna spend it.
Well, to spend $15 million gives me pause, yeah. I mean,
Why?
the pace, the speed of it.
Oh, we got to, we need to get on
Oh,
it.
we don't have to spend.
Well, that's your feeling.
Well,
that's
that
not
is my
mine.
opinion.
I think that we're so far behind, we need to get with it. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. And unless the board, the rest of the board feels that way, well, then that's the direction we're gonna go.
I'm just trying to,
But here's one thing we need to, yes, go ahead.
no, I'm just trying to make it real clear, like Josh is saying, want more architects, right? More options, more comfort. I mean, when it comes to tens of millions of dollars, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but this got nothing to do with spending it.
Well, but
It's telling us how we're gonna build it. That's all it's telling us. We just gonna select somebody to, I don't think that it's that big of a deal.
Ms. Lozano?
No, I just wanted to add, I mean, I listened to both of you, definitely respect where you're each coming from, but I can't help but think that Mr. Overfelt's suggestion to add additional companies to give us a showing, marketing tidbit, would help us be more confident in their work and hopefully give us more confidence in spending that amount of money. And I think I share concerns as well with Mr. Garabedian in the way that, right, what's the rush? Why do we, why do we have to do two at the same time? Why don't we do one, start it, see, make sure it goes well, then get into the second one? I know you're gonna look to hire someone to manage them. It's a lot of money. And I know we did set it aside, we agreed to that, but that didn't necessarily mean we were gonna
But
write out a check immediately.
Mr. Chivita, yes, sir.
the thing about it is we're not rushing it. Our kids cannot wait. Every year we graduate some kids. Every day that they don't utilize these facilities, it's a day that shouldn't be there. So I think that if we got that money allocated, I think we should go ahead and decide what we're gonna build and get with it. I don't see any problem with it.
Well, it brings us back to the agenda item. More architects on display, right?
That's all.
That's more thorough.
No problem.
Right. Did we actually say how many, or are we just gonna leave that kind of, the superintendent can communicate individually?
Yeah, I said the next two on the list for a total of 7, but whatever the I don't think it would be good to go all the way to 11. I'd be pushing, I'm just saying, the next two.
And some of them may not be able to come, or
Make
may
it.
not be
not
interested in
want to.
coming, or?
So is it fair to say the top 7 who are willing and able to? Okay.
Fair.
7 architectural firms.
It's fine by me.
And just to set everyone at ease, is that, the agenda is to approve the architects. There will be discussions, a lot more discussions on timelines and approvals for plans and renderings, and we'll have time to move forward. I'm not taking this as a yes and going and committing the money. First of all, I don't have that authority. Two, if I've shown anything in the last 8 months, is my ability to communicate with the board every step of the way, and I will continue to do that. And you can make your decisions at that point. Today was just about bringing the architect.
Okay, so before the recommendation, which will expand the number, right, do we want to give a specific number? Did you say 7 or 8, or someone said 11? Mr. Mesa said no, not 11.
I'm saying the top 7 that are willing to come.
Okay.
But good point was brought up, whoever wants to come up here, but evidently, 11, whoever it might be,
Would they all
not as
fit?
good as the first 5, so maybe just another 2 would be fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I mean, they might have been good, but we think that they were not as good.
Okay, I guess, make the recommendation with that change.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees approve to schedule a workshop for 7 architectural firms to make the presentation before a final architectural service provider recommendation is made for the district's major project.
Heard the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Mesa has motion, Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. Brings us to agenda item 12D, consideration to approve the most highly qualified engineering service, geotechnical, and construction materials testing providers per RFQ number 14-06 for the district's projects that resulted from the approved Citizens Committee's district-wide construction renovations and repair project list totaling $23,138,000. Once again, Dr. Rios.
This agenda item, Mr. Garabedian, is specific to the geotechnical services. Again, we didn't get as many firms interested in this, but we did get a sufficient amount to feel positive about the recommendation. Are there any questions? This is just for geotechnical services.
Yeah, I think I have a question. Ms. Lozano might too. Okay, well, would you just give me a moment to find the memo and then... Number 78. Mr. Mesa, did you have
Yes.
something?
So this is actually surveying and just geo work.
Yeah, they don't do any design.
Okay.
No, I got it, thanks. Other questions on this one?
No, sir.
Okay. No questions on that one. We'll go straight to the recommendation.
There's a recommendation of the administration that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees approve the selection of PSI and Rayba Kistner engineering firms per RFQ number 14-06 for geotechnical and construction materials testing for the district's approved construction, renovations, and repair projects listed totaling $23,138,000 as presented. And that they approve the superintendent to negotiate and sign a contract with PSI and Rayba Kistner engineering firms at a fair and reasonable price.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Overfelt has motioned. Is there a second? Ms. Lozano has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Motion carries. You did vote, right?
Yes, sir.
Unanimous. Motion carries. It brings us to agenda item 12E, consideration to approve the most highly qualified engineering service, civil and surveying provider or providers per RFQ number 14-07 for the district's projects that resulted from the approved Citizens Committee's district-wide construction renovation repair list totaling $23,128,000. It was stated incorrectly in the memo, but we caught it. It was just a typo. Everybody saw the typo on that item. Dr. Rios?
Again, this is just for the civil and surveying services. Are there any questions before I make the recommendation, Mr. President?
Other questions on this one?
You already corrected them.
We corrected the numeric problem, right? Okay. All right.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the San Felipe Del Rio CISD Board of Trustees approve the selection of Amistad Consulting Services and CEC engineering firms per RFQ number 14-07 for civil and surveying services for the district's approved construction renovations and repair project list totaling $23,138,000 as presented, and that they approve the superintendent to negotiate and sign a contract with Amistad Consulting Services and CEC engineering firms at a fair and reasonable price.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Chavita has motioned. Is there a second? Mr. Overfelt has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous. Motion carries. Agenda item 13A, Business and Finance, consideration to approve membership to the Region 16 Education Service Center, sponsored by TextBuy. Ms. Johnson's already at the podium. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian and Dr. Rios and board members. Pursuant to the Interlocal Chapter Cooperation Act, Chapter 791 of the Texas Government Code, Chapter 271, Subchapter F of the Texas Local Government Code, and Education Code Subchapter B 44.031 of the Purchasing Contracts, in order for the school district to participate in a new interlocal, we are required to ask for board approval. And as each of you know, membership in a cooperative helps with the effectiveness, and it helps save money to our district. One of our technology vendors that we do a great deal of business with has become a member of Region 16, which sponsors the TextBuy program, and they offer rebates. And so I am here tonight to ask for your permission for the superintendent to sign the paperwork and the board president in order for us to be a member of Region 16. Are there any questions?
Questions? Mr. Mesa?
Where is Region 16?
Where is Region 16? Region 16, oh my goodness.
Amarillo?
It's up in the panhandle,
Mr. Mesa, I'm embarrassed that I can't answer that. I should have that on the tip of my tongue, and I don't.
It's Amarillo.
I think it's in the valley. It's not, where is it?
Region 1's the valley.
Amarillo.
Mr. Overfelt says it's Amarillo.
This here says that it goes to Director of Purchasing in Amarillo. So.
It's the panhandle. Other questions?
Okay.
Well, I apologize that I wasn't able to answer that.
no
I
idea.
should have.
Okay, are we ready for the recommendation?
Yes, sir.
It's the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution and contract for membership to the Region 16 Education Service Center, sponsor of TextBuy.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Ms. Lozano has motioned. Mr. Chavita has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well. got through all of that. Okay, it's now at 8:05 p.m., March 17th, 2014. The Board of Trustees will recess this open session and convene a closed meeting in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D and E. We You're able to do that under sections 551.071, 551.072, 551.073, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, 551.084. Item A, pursuant to 551.074, discussion of personnel, or to hear complaints against personnel. 1, discussion of personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. 2, discussion of salary adjustments to include the following justification: service credit, master's degree. 3, discussion of teacher contracts. 4, report from the superintendent regarding personnel decisions and program initiatives involving same. All final votes, actions, or decisions will be taken in open session. Now in closed session. Okay, it's now 11:27 p.m., March 17th, 2014. And the Board of Trustees will now reconvene in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, Subchapter D and E. No action was taken in closed session. So that brings us to Agenda Item 17. We are reconvened in open session. Agenda Item A, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Dr. Patty McNamara, you're up.
Good evening, Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, members of the board. The administration at this time would like to recommend the following new hires for your consideration this evening. Mr. Gilberto Vasquez, Network Administrator for the Administration Building. Sandra Davidson, English Teacher, Del Rio High School. Luis M. Esparza, Social Studies Teacher, Del Rio Middle School. Cami Tim, Science Teacher, Del Rio Middle School. And also Mr. Carlos Castillo, 5th grade teacher at Garfield Elementary.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Chavita has motion, Ms. Haynes is second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. That brings us to Agenda Item 17B, consideration to approve salary adjustments to include the following: justification, service credit, master's degree. Dr. McNamara again presenting.
Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. At this time, the administration would like to recommend the salary adjustments be approved as presented in closed executive session this evening.
For the recommendation, is there a motion to accept? Mr. Overfelt has motion, Ms. Lozano has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the final item, 17C. Consideration to approve teacher contracts, and there were a lot of them. So we're ready to take action, right?
Yes, sir. Mr. Garabedian, Dr. Rios, and members of the board, it is the recommendation of the administration that the School Board of Trustees approve the 384 teacher contracts as presented in closed executive session.
For the recommendation, Mr. Overfelt has motion to accept. Mr. Mesa has second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Superintendent's report. I don't believe there's anything. Agenda Item 19, adjournment. Being no further business before this board, is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Overfelt has motion. Ms. Haynes is second. All in favor by a show of hands? Unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Let's go home.